The letter trembled in my hands as I stared at the address of my childhood home. 3 years had passed since I'd last set foot in that house, since the day I woke up in the hospital with a foggy memory and a body full of unexplained bruises. My name is Alexandra, and I was 21 when my stepmother tried to erase me from my family's life. Are you sure you want to open that? Oliver leaned against my office desk, his usual confident demeanor softened with concern. You've come so far, Alex. Don't let them drag you back. I broke the seal and pulled out the document, my heart pounding against my ribs. It's from Dad's lawyer. My voice cracked. The house, the one Mom left me in her will. They never managed to transfer it to Rebecca's name. The memories rushed back like a flood. That night, Rebecca had served her special tea, the one that made everything hazy. I remembered stumbling, the world spinning, her voice syrupy sweet as she guided me toward the stairs. Careful, dear, you seem unwell. The next thing I knew, I was in the hospital. They called it an accident, a terrible fall down the stairs. But I knew better. The look in Rebecca's eyes when she visited, cold, calculating, disappointed, told me everything I needed to know. Your father called again, Oliver said, pulling me back to the present. That's the third time this week. I set down the letter and pulled up our company's latest projections. Did he mention Rebecca? He said she's worried about you. Oliver snorted. Funny how she only started worrying after your startup hit the news. Our tech company had just secured its second round of funding, $20 million. The headlines called me a prodigy, a rising star in artificial intelligence. Success was the sweetest revenge. My phone buzzed, a text from my half-sister Raylyn. Alex, please call me. Mom's acting weird again. Dad won't listen. Shit. I grabbed my jacket. I need to see Ray. Oliver blocked the door. Wait, there's something else you should see first. He handed me a newspaper clipping. Your father's company is in trouble. Major trouble. The article detailed mounting debts and missed payments. My father's signature was on everything, but I recognized Rebecca's handiwork. She'd always been ambitious, always pushing for expansion, for more. I dialed Raylyn's number, my hands shaking. She answered on the first ring. Alex? Her voice was barely a whisper. She's trying to sell the house, your house, the one Mom left you. She can't sell what isn't hers, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. You don't understand. She's desperate. Dad's about to lose everything, and she's convinced him you're the only one who can help. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. By signing away my inheritance? Please come home, Raylyn pleaded. Not for them, for me. Oliver watched me, concern etched on his face. He'd been there through everything, the recovery, the nightmares, building our company from nothing. He knew what going back could cost me. I'll think about it, I told Ray, ending the call. You're going back, aren't you? Oliver sighed. I picked up the inheritance letter again, running my fingers over the embossed letterhead. Mom knew Oliver. She must have known what Rebecca was capable of. Why else would she leave the house in my name, with a clause that it can never be sold without my signature? My phone buzzed again, an email from the family lawyer, Kimberly. The subject line made my blood run cold. Urgent, foreclosure notice. I opened it with trembling fingers. The attachment showed what I'd suspected. Rebecca had been taking out loans against the house, my house. But without my signature, they were worthless. Look at this, I said, showing Oliver the screen. She forged my signature on some of these documents. Oliver whistled low. That's prison time. I stared out the window at the Seattle skyline, at the empire I'd built from the ashes of my old life. 3 years ago, she thought she'd won. She thought she'd broken me. What are you going to do? I grabbed my keys, my mind made up. I'm going home, but this time I'm not the scared little girl she remembers. This time, I have proof. The inheritance letter felt heavy in my bag as I headed for the elevator. My mother's last gift wasn't just a house, it was protection, insurance against the woman who tried to destroy me. And now, that same house would be Rebecca's undoing. As the elevator doors closed, I smiled. Sometimes karma needs a little help. The familiar streets of my childhood neighborhood felt smaller now, shadows of what they once were. I pulled my Tesla into the driveway of my mother's, my house, the gravel crunching under the tires. Nice place, Oliver said from the passenger seat. Hard to believe they're about to lose it. I killed the engine but couldn't bring myself to get out. 3 years ago, I left here in an ambulance. A figure appeared at the front door, Raylan, her dark hair wild around her face. She ran down the steps and yanked open my car door. You actually came. She pulled me into a fierce hug, then stepped back to look at me. God, you look so successful. You look tired, I said, noting the dark circles under her eyes. Yeah, well, living with Rebecca will do that to you. She glanced at Oliver. Who's this? Oliver Turner, business partner and designated voice of reason, he said, extending his hand, though Alex rarely listens to reason. A curtain twitched in the upstairs window. Rebecca was watching. They're not home, Raylan said, following my gaze. Dad's at the bank, and Rebecca's at her lawyer's office. Again. We went inside, and I was struck by how little had changed. Same furniture, same photos on the walls. Except now I'd been cropped out of most of them. Want to see what they did to your room? Raylan asked, already heading up the stairs. My old bedroom had been converted into a home office. Rebecca's designer handbags displayed like trophies on floating shelves. My chest tightened. She sells them online now, Raylan explained. Since Dad's company started struggling, she's been trying everything to bring in money. Oliver whistled, picking up one of the bags. This is fake. A good fake, but definitely counterfeit. I raised an eyebrow. How do you know? My sister works in luxury retail. These stitches are all wrong. He set the bag down carefully. Your stepmother's running a counterfeit operation from your bedroom. A car door slammed outside. Raylan rushed to the window. Shit, they're back early. Alexandra? Rebecca's voice floated up the stairs, honey sweet and dangerous. Is that your car in the driveway? I squared my shoulders and headed downstairs, Oliver close behind me. Rebecca stood in the foyer, elegant as ever in her designer suit. My father hovered behind her, looking older and grayer than I remembered. What a lovely surprise, Rebecca said, air kissing my cheek. And who's this handsome young man? Oliver Turner, he said coolly, Alex's business partner. Ah, yes, the little tech company. Rebecca's smile didn't reach her eyes. How quaint. 20 million in second-round funding is a bit more than quaint, Oliver replied. My father stepped forward. Princess, we've been trying to reach you. Don't. I held up my hand. Don't call me that. Not after 3 years of silence. We need to discuss the house, Rebecca cut in. Perhaps over dinner? Just family? Oliver stays, I said firmly. And I've seen the foreclosure notice. There's nothing to discuss. Rebecca's facade cracked slightly. You don't understand the situation. I understand perfectly. You've been taking out loans against property you don't own, using forged documents. I pulled out my phone, showing her the email from Kimberly. That's fraud. My father's face went pale. Rebecca, what is she talking about? Mateo, darling, I can explain. Did you know, Dad? I asked, my voice sharp. Did you know she tried to have me written out of Mom's will? That she forged my signature? That the night I fell down the stairs, That's enough. Rebecca's mask slipped completely. You ungrateful little... Mom, stop. Raylan appeared at the bottom of the stairs. Tell them about the bags. Tell them what you've really been doing with Dad's money. The front door opened again, and Collins Walker from the bank stepped in, looking uncomfortable. Mr. Edwards, I have those documents you requested. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you had company. I turned to Collins. Perfect timing. I'm Alexandra, the actual owner of this house, and I think we need to have a conversation about some irregularities in these loan applications. Rebecca's face went white. My father looked between us, confusion giving way to understanding, then horror. Princess? Alexandra, he corrected himself. What happened that night? The night you fell? I met Rebecca's eyes, saw the fear there. Why don't you ask your wife about the tea she served me? The one she said would help me sleep. The silence that followed was deafening. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky, and rain began to fall. A storm was coming, in more ways than one. Oliver touched my arm. Alex, maybe we should continue this conversation somewhere more official, with lawyers present. I nodded, not breaking eye contact with Rebecca. I think that's an excellent idea. The law office felt sterile and cold, much like Rebecca's smile as she sat across the conference table. My father had insisted on a family meeting with the lawyers present, though his hands hadn't stopped shaking since yesterday's revelations. Let's address the elephant in the room, Kimberly said, spreading documents across the table. These loan applications contain forged signatures. Rebecca leaned forward. There must be some mistake. Save it, I cut her off. I had a forensic document examiner review everything this morning. I slid a report across the table. Would you like to explain why you've been signing my name since I was in the hospital? My father put his head in his hands. I don't understand. Rebecca, you told me Alexandra had agreed to help with the business loans. Of course she did, Rebecca said smoothly. Darling, remember? We discussed it over dinner that night. The night you drugged me? I asked, my voice steady despite the rage burning in my chest. That dinner? The door opened and Raylan slipped in, followed by Oliver. Rebecca's eyes narrowed. This is a private family matter, she snapped. Then I definitely belong here, Raylan said, dropping a designer handbag on the table. Let's talk about your side business, Mom. The counterfeit luxury goods you've been selling online? Kimberly sat up straighter. Mrs. Edwards, is this true? Don't answer that. Rebecca's lawyer interrupted. We're here to discuss the house, nothing more. It's all connected, Oliver said, pulling out his tablet. We've traced the money. The loans taken out against Alexandra's house were used to finance the counterfeit operation. Classic money laundering. My father looked like he might be sick. The business expansion, the new suppliers you found, were all fake, I finished. She's been bleeding your company dry to fund her schemes. Rebecca's composure cracked. Everything I did for this family. Your precious mother left us nothing but debt, and that house, my mother left the house to me, I said, standing up, because she knew exactly what kind of person you are. You have no proof of any wrongdoing regarding Alexandra's accident, Rebecca's lawyer interjected. Raylan reached into her bag and pulled out a small notebook. Actually, we do. I found Mom's old diary. She wrote everything down, including the sleeping pills she crushed into Alex's tea. Rebecca lunged for the notebook, but Oliver was faster. He handed it directly to Kimberly, who began flipping through the pages. This is... Kimberly looked up, her professional demeanor slipping. Mrs. Edwards, these entries detail premeditated attempted murder. The room went silent. My father stood up so quickly, his chair toppled backward. You tried to kill my daughter? His voice was barely a whisper. Rebecca's face contorted. She was ruining everything, always bringing up her mother, turning you against me. The house was supposed to be mine. The police are on their way, Oliver said quietly, his phone in hand. They're very interested in both the fraud and the attempted murder confession we just recorded. I walked around the table to stand in front of Rebecca. You know what the worst part is? I would have helped if you'd just asked, but you couldn't stand the idea of needing anything from me. Alex, my father reached for me, but I stepped back. You're not much better, I told him. You saw what was happening and chose to look away. Every time. Raylan moved to my side, slipping her hand into mine. What happens now? The door opened again, and two police officers entered, followed by Collins from the bank. Rebecca Edwards, one officer said, we need you to come with us. As they led Rebecca away in handcuffs, she turned to my father one last time. Mateo, please, tell them I did it for us. But my father wasn't looking at her. He was staring at the diary in Kimberly's hands, at the evidence of how thoroughly he'd failed to protect his daughter. The house, Collins spoke up awkwardly. Given the circumstances, the bank is willing to work out new payment arrangements with the legitimate owner. I looked at my father, saw the defeat in his shoulders, the fear in his eyes. 3 years ago, I'd wanted nothing more than to hurt them the way they'd hurt me. Now, watching my father's world crumble, I felt nothing but exhaustion. Draw up the paperwork, I told Collins. We'll need to review all the legitimate loans versus the fraudulent ones. Alexandra, my father started. I'm not doing this for you, I said. I'm doing it for Raylan and for Mom. She loved this house. Oliver touched my shoulder. We should go. The police will need statements. As we left the office, Raylan squeezed my hand. Thank you, she whispered, for not letting her win. I looked back at my father, still standing alone in the conference room, and realized that in the end, there were no winners here, only survivors. The house felt different with Rebecca gone. I stood in her former office, my old bedroom, boxing up the counterfeit bags for the police evidence locker. Each one represented another lie, another betrayal. Found something, Raylan called from the closet. She emerged holding a dusty wooden box. It has Mom's name on it. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were stacks of letters, photos, and a small velvet pouch. Oh my God, I whispered, pulling out a photograph. This was Mom's last Christmas. The doorbell rang, startling us both. Oliver's voice drifted up from downstairs. Alex, your father's here. I shoved the box under my arm. Not now. I can't. Please. My father's voice cracked. 5 minutes. Raylan touched my shoulder. I'll take the box to your car. You should talk to him. I descended the stairs slowly. My father stood in the foyer, looking lost without Rebecca's commanding presence beside him. Oliver hovered nearby, ready to intervene if needed. The police called, my father said. Rebecca's being held without bail, the fraud charges alone. He trailed off, running a hand through his gray hair. I had no idea about the sleeping pills. You have to believe me. But you knew something was wrong that night, I said. You knew, and you chose to believe her anyway. I was a coward. He pulled something from his pocket, an old envelope. I found this in Rebecca's things. It's from your mother, dated a week before she died. My hands shook as I opened it. Mom's familiar handwriting filled the page. Mateo, if you're reading this, I need you to protect our Alexandra. Rebecca isn't who you think she is. The money missing from the accounts? I looked up. What money? Your mother suspected Rebecca was embezzling from the company even then. He slumped against the wall. I didn't want to see it. After your mother died, Rebecca seemed so capable, so sure of everything. It was easier to let her take control. Even when she tried to kill your daughter? Oliver asked sharply. Oliver, I warned, but he stepped forward. No, he needs to hear this. You almost died. You spent months recovering, building yourself back up, while he let that woman erase you from your own family. You're right, my father said quietly. I failed you, princess, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it right. The front door opened and Raylan rushed in, clutching her phone. Alex, you need to see this. Mom's been posting on social media from jail. I grabbed the phone. Rebecca's post was already going viral. My stepdaughter's vicious lies have torn our family apart. The truth about her mother's death will come out. Some accidents aren't accidents at all. My blood ran cold. She's implying that Mom's death wasn't natural, Raylan finished. She's trying to deflect from her crimes by accusing Mom of something. That's impossible, my father protested. Your mother died of heart failure. There was an autopsy. Oliver was already on his phone. I'm calling Kimberly. We need to get ahead of this. I walked to the living room, staring at the family photos Rebecca hadn't managed to alter. Mom's smile, always so bright, even near the end. The missing money, I said slowly. Dad, where did it go? He shook his head. We never found out. Rebecca claimed she'd invested it in overseas opportunities, but the paperwork was vague. Alex, Oliver called from the foyer. Kimberly says Rebecca's lawyer is pushing for a deal. They want to trade information about your mother's death for a reduced sentence. She's bluffing, I said, but doubt crept in. She has to be. Raylan was scrolling through her phone. There's more. Mom had a private Instagram account I didn't know about. Look at these photos from right before your accident. The images showed Rebecca at various banks, meeting with people in expensive suits. In one photo, a familiar face stood out. That's Dr. Phillips, my father said, your mother's cardiologist. A piece clicked into place. The same doctor who prescribed Mom's heart medication. Oliver was already dialing. I'm calling my contact at the FBI. This just became much bigger than fraud. I sank onto the couch, the weight of this new revelation pressing down on me. She didn't just try to kill me. She might have. We'll find the truth, my father said firmly. Whatever it takes. Raylan sat beside me, gripping my hand. Mom kept records of everything. If there's proof, it'll be in that box we found. I stood up, determination replacing shock. Oliver, tell the FBI we'll cooperate fully. Dad, I need every financial record from the company dating back to when Rebecca first arrived. Ray, help me go through Mom's box. And Rebecca's social media threats? Oliver asked. I looked at the family photo again, at my mother's smile. Let her talk. She doesn't know what we just found. The truth about my mother's death had been hidden in this house all along, waiting to be discovered. Rebecca thought she could use it as leverage, but she just made her biggest mistake yet. The FBI office buzzed with activity as Agent Sarah Martinez spread the contents of Mom's box across the conference table. Each piece of evidence told part of a story I wasn't sure I was ready to hear. Your mother was thorough, Martinez said, examining a stack of bank statements. She documented every suspicious transaction, every meeting between Rebecca and Dr. Phillips. Oliver pointed to a series of offshore transfers. Look at these dates. Each withdrawal corresponds with a change in your mother's medication dosage. She was tracking Rebecca all along, I said, picking up a photo of Rebecca leaving Dr. Phillips's office. She knew something was wrong. The door opened and Kimberly rushed in, clutching her laptop. Rebecca's lawyer just sent over their proposed deal. You need to see this. She placed the laptop in front of me. Rebecca's statement was short but devastating. I will provide evidence that Alexandra's mother was embezzling company funds and orchestrated her own death for the insurance payout. In exchange, I want full immunity. That's ridiculous, my father exploded from his corner of the room. Maria would never— Wait, Martinez interrupted, pulling out a document from Mom's box. This might explain Rebecca's strategy. Your mother took out a substantial life insurance policy 3 months before her death. My hands clenched into fists. Because Rebecca threatened her, Look at the dates. This was right after Mom confronted her about the missing money. Raylan, who'd been quietly examining Mom's diary, suddenly sat up straight. Here, Mom wrote about it. Rebecca found the evidence. Says she'll destroy everything we built unless I take the fall. The policy is my only protection for Alexandra now. Martinez leaned forward. This changes everything. Your mother wasn't just tracking Rebecca's crimes. She was building a case. But why didn't she go to the police? Oliver asked. Because of me, my father said quietly. She was protecting me. I was blind to Rebecca's manipulation, and Maria knew it would destroy me to learn the truth. A knock at the door announced Collins from the bank. Sorry to interrupt, but we found something in the loan records. Dr. Phillips's signature appears on several documents as a guarantor. He was in on it from the beginning, I realized. Rebecca needed a doctor she could control to manipulate Mom's medication. Martinez pulled out her phone. I'll get a warrant for Phillips's records right now if he altered your mother's prescriptions. That's murder, Kimberly finished, and conspiracy to commit murder in Alexandra's case. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. A video link. My hands shook as I opened it. Rebecca's face filled the screen, her prison jumpsuit a stark contrast to her usual polished appearance. Hello, Alexandra. By now you've found your mother's little collection of evidence. Impressive, isn't it? But incomplete. The real story died with her. Unless you accept my deal, you have 1 hour to drop all charges, or I release everything I have about your mother to the press. She's bluffing, Oliver said, but I shook my head. No, she's desperate, and desperate people are dangerous. Martinez was already moving. We can trace that number. Don't bother, I said, standing up. I want to talk to her, face to face. Alex, no, Oliver protested. That's exactly what she wants. She wants to play games, I corrected him, but I have something she doesn't know about. I pulled one last item from Mom's box, a small USB drive labeled Insurance. What's on it? Raylan asked. I don't know yet, but Mom labeled it the day before she died. I handed it to Martinez. Can your team decrypt this? 20 minutes later, the room was silent as we watched the video on the drive. Mom's face, thin but determined, filled the screen. If you're watching this, I'm dead, and Rebecca has finally shown her true colors. Everything you need is here. The real bank records, the recordings of her meetings with Phillips, all of it. I'm sorry, Alexandra. I thought I could protect you by playing her game. I was wrong. Martinez paused the video. This is a dying declaration, completely admissible in court. My phone buzzed again. Rebecca's ultimatum counting down. 50 minutes left. I'm still gonna talk to her, I said, holding up my hand to stop the protests. But not as a victim, not as the scared girl she tried to erase. She wants to tell stories about my mother? Fine. Let's see how she handles the truth. I'm coming with you, my father said, standing. It's time I faced what I helped create. Raylan hugged me. Make her pay. For Mom. Martinez nodded to her team. We'll have everything ready. The moment she confesses. Oh, she'll confess, I said, picking up my mother's diary. She thinks she's winning. She thinks this is her chance to rewrite history. Oliver grabbed his coat. I'll drive. Someone needs to keep you from committing justifiable homicide. As we headed out, I touched the diary in my bag. Mom had died protecting her family from Rebecca. Now it was my turn to protect her legacy. Rebecca wanted to tell stories? I had a feeling she wouldn't like the ending to this one. The prison visiting room felt smaller than I expected. Rebecca sat across from me, her perfect posture unchanged by the orange jumpsuit. My father sat beside me, while Oliver waited just outside with Martinez. 30 minutes left, Rebecca said, tapping her fingers on the metal table. Tick-tock. Before you say anything else, I placed Mom's diary on the table. You should know we found everything. Her smile didn't waver. Did you? And what exactly do you think you found? Let's start with Dr. Phillips, I said, opening the diary. He's already talking to the FBI. Seems he doesn't want to go down for murder. The first crack appeared in her facade, a slight twitch of her eye. You really thought you could threaten me with Mom's reputation? I continued. She was 3 steps ahead of you the whole time. Your mother was an embezzler, Rebecca snapped. I have proof. You mean these? I slid copies of the bank statements across the table. The ones you doctored after forcing her to take out that life insurance policy? My father's hand gripped my arm. Rebecca, how could you? How could I? She leaned forward, mask slipping. How could you be so blind? Your precious Maria was going to ruin everything, digging into my past, threatening to expose. Your previous identity? I interrupted. The color drained from her face. Mom found that too. Rebecca isn't even your real name, is it? You're bluffing, she whispered. I pulled out my phone, playing the video from Mom's USB drive. Rebecca's eyes widened as she watched Mom detail every aspect of her investigation. The fake identity, the previous fraud charges, the connection to Dr. Phillips. Turn it off, she demanded. Why? This is my favorite part, where you threatened to kill me if Mom didn't take the fall for your embezzlement. I never. Save it, my father cut in. The FBI has the original recordings. Maria knew you'd try something like this. She hid cameras in her office. Rebecca's composure shattered. She deserved it, acting so superior, protecting her precious daughter while painting me as the villain. I built that company into what it is. You destroyed it, I corrected, just like you tried to destroy me. The only difference is I survived. You have no idea what I'm capable of, she hissed. Even in here, I have connections. One phone call. To who? I asked. Dr. Phillips? He's in custody. Your lawyer? She's cooperating to save herself. The people running your counterfeit operation? Arrested this morning. The door opened and Martinez stepped in. Time's up. Dr. Phillips just signed a full confession. We have enough to charge you with first-degree murder. Rebecca lunged across the table, her hands reaching for my throat, but guards were already moving. As they restrained her, she screamed, I should have pushed you harder down those stairs. There it is, Martinez said calmly. Confession recorded, along with the threat. My father stood, finally looking at his wife with clear eyes. I'll be filing for divorce. Don't contact us again. As Rebecca was dragged away, still screaming threats, I picked up Mom's diary. She never understood, did she? Mom wasn't collecting evidence just to expose her. What do you mean? My father asked. She was creating a safety net. Everything in this diary, the recordings, the USB, it was all to protect us after she was gone. She knew what Rebecca would do. Oliver appeared in the doorway. Raylan just called. Dr. Phillips gave up everything. Dates, times, exactly how they altered your mother's medication. They're charging him as an accomplice to murder. I touched the diary's worn cover. Mom wrote that she was sorry she couldn't stop Rebecca directly. She was afraid Rebecca would hurt me if she did. Maria always put you first, my father said softly. I forgot that somewhere along the way. Martinez approached with forms in hand. We'll need official statements, but this case is solid. Rebecca's looking at life without parole. As we left the prison, I saw Rebecca being led to a secure transport vehicle. Our eyes met briefly. All her power, all her manipulation, stripped away in an instant. She'd thought she was so clever, using Mom's death as leverage. Instead, Mom had reached out from the past and exposed every dark secret Rebecca had tried to bury. You okay? Oliver asked as we reached the car. No, I admitted, but I will be. We all will be. My phone buzzed. Raylan again. They're seizing all of Mom's assets. The house is officially safe. I looked back at the prison one last time. Rebecca had tried to write her own ending, but Mom had left us the true story. Now it was up to us to write the next chapter. Let's go home, I said. We have a lot of healing to do. The sun was setting as we drove away, casting long shadows behind us. Some ghosts, I realized, don't need to be fought. They just need to be brought into the light. 1 month after Rebecca's confession, I stood in the master bedroom of my mother's house, sorting through the last of her belongings. The trial was set to begin next week, but today was about something more important. Found it, Raylan called from the closet. She emerged holding a white garment bag. Mom's wedding dress. She always said you should have it. A knock at the door interrupted my response. Oliver poked his head in. Your father's here, and you might want to come downstairs. There's something you need to see. We descended to find my father standing in the living room with Kimberly and Collins. A large box sat on the coffee table. What's going on? I asked. The FBI finished processing Rebecca's storage unit, Kimberly explained. They found this. It's addressed to you, from your mother. My hands trembled as I opened the box. Inside was a leather-bound journal and an envelope marked, "For Alexandra, when you're ready." Rebecca hid this? Raylan asked, anger coloring her voice. She hid a lot of things, my father said quietly. The FBI found evidence of her crimes going back 20 years. Different names, different victims. I opened the envelope, unfolding a letter written in Mom's familiar hand. My dearest Alexandra, if you're reading this, then my worst fears about Rebecca have come true. I'm writing this the night before I confront her about the missing money. I know the risk, but I can't let her destroy everything we've built. The journal contains everything: my investigation, my fears, and most importantly, my hopes for you. I've arranged for the house to be yours because I know Rebecca will try to take everything else. The house isn't just walls and memories. It's your foundation, your strength. Don't let hatred consume you. Rebecca's greatest weapon was always bitterness. Don't let her win by becoming like her. All my love, Mom. There's more, Collins said, pulling out some documents. We found the original company records. Your mother had set up a separate trust in your name. Rebecca never found it. Oliver whistled at the numbers. This could save your father's company. Our company, my father corrected. It was always meant to be yours too, Princess. I just lost sight of that. Raylan squeezed my hand. What are you going to do? Before I could answer, Martinez arrived with more news. Dr. Phillips took a plea deal. He's testifying against Rebecca. With his testimony and your mother's evidence, it's over. Not quite, I said, picking up Mom's journal. There's one more thing we need to do. The next morning, I sat in the courthouse, watching as Rebecca was led in for her pre-trial hearing. She looked smaller somehow, her designer confidence replaced by desperate fear. The state calls Alexandra Bennett, the prosecutor announced. As I took the stand, Rebecca wouldn't meet my eyes. I opened Mom's journal and began to read. I'm not here for revenge, I started. I'm here because my mother believed in justice, not vengeance. This journal tells the story of a woman who faced evil with courage, who protected her family with love instead of hate. Rebecca finally looked up, her expression unreadable. You tried to erase both of us, I continued. But Mom left us something you could never understand, the truth. Not just about your crimes, but about the power of family, real family. The prosecutor presented Mom's evidence piece by piece. With each revelation, Rebecca seemed to shrink further into herself. When Dr. Phillips testified about altering Mom's medication, my father had to leave the room. Finally, the judge spoke. Given the overwhelming evidence and the severity of the crimes, I'm denying bail. The defendant will remain in custody until trial. As they led Rebecca away, she turned to me one last time. I never meant, save it. I cut her off. Mom knew exactly who you were. That's why she made sure you'd never win. Outside the courthouse, reporters clamored for statements, but Oliver guided me through them to where Raylan and my father waited. Ready to go home? Raylan asked. I looked at Mom's journal in my hands. Actually, I think it's time for something new. Dad, what do you say we rebuild the company? The way Mom always wanted, together. He hugged me for the first time in years. She'd be so proud of you, Princess. Of all of us, I corrected, including Raylan in the embrace. Oliver cleared his throat. Not to interrupt the family moment, but we have that tech merger meeting in an hour. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. Then let's go build something good, something Mom would be proud of. As we left the courthouse, I realized Mom had given us one final gift, the chance to write our own story, free from Rebecca's shadow. And this time, we'd write it together. The autumn breeze rustled through the garden as I unlocked the front door of my childhood home. The renovation crew had just finished, transforming Rebecca's cold designer showcase back into the warm space Mom had created. Last box, Oliver announced, carrying in a crate of family photos. Though I still think you should sell this place and buy that penthouse downtown. Not happening. I began unpacking the photos, restored to their rightful places. This house was Mom's gift. It's where we belong. The doorbell rang. Raylan burst in, waving a newspaper. We made the front page. Tech Sisters Transform Family Legacy. Bennett AI revolutionizes industry. Did you see the best part? My father followed her in, carrying coffee for everyone. The stock price doubled after the merger announcement. I picked up Mom's portrait, placing it above the fireplace. She would have loved seeing you run the AI division, Ray. You're even better with code than I am. Speaking of code, Oliver interrupted, checking his phone. The prison's firewall upgrade is complete. Rebecca won't be sending any more mysterious emails from behind bars. The trial had ended with Rebecca facing life imprisonment for Mom's murder and my attempted murder. Dr. Phillips got 20 years for his role. The truth had finally won. Mail's here, Raylan called from the front door, including something from Mom's old lawyer in Boston. I opened the thick envelope and a small key fell into my palm. The accompanying letter made my heart skip. Per Maria's instructions, this key opens a safety deposit box at First National to be delivered to Alexandra upon the successful conviction of Rebecca Edwards. Dad? I held up the key. Did you know about this? He shook his head, looking puzzled. Maria had accounts in Boston from before we married. She never closed them. An hour later, we gathered around the conference table at First National as the bank manager opened the safety deposit box. Inside lay another letter and a small USB drive. My dearest Alexandra, I read aloud, if you're reading this, you've done what I couldn't. You've exposed Rebecca's true nature and protected our family. But there's one last gift I need to share. I plugged the USB drive into Oliver's laptop. A video began playing. Mom, healthy and vibrant, sitting in her garden. Hello, my loves, she said, smiling. I'm recording this because I've discovered something wonderful. The AI project I was working on before Rebecca arrived, I completed it. The code is on this drive, along with patents already filed in Alexandra's name. My father gasped. The neural network project? But Rebecca said it failed. Because she wanted us to believe that, I realized. Mom knew she was going to try to steal it. The video continued. Alexandra, this technology could change everything, but more importantly, it proves what I've always known. Our family's strength isn't in buildings or bank accounts. It's in here. She touched her heart. Rebecca never understood that. She saw power as something to take. We know it's something to share. Raylan was already examining the code. This is incredible. The applications for medical diagnosis alone. That's why Mom hid it, I said softly. She knew Rebecca would use it for profit instead of helping people. There's more. Oliver pointed to the screen. Stock certificates, dated the week before she died. She transferred ownership of her original patents to both of you. He looked at Raylan and me. You two own controlling interest in everything. My father wiped his eyes. She made sure you'd always be stronger together. I hugged Raylan close. Partners? Always, she agreed. For Mom. Back at the house that evening, we gathered in the garden Mom had loved so much. The flowers she'd planted still bloomed, persistent and beautiful. To Maria, my father raised his glass, who gave us everything we needed to find our way back to each other. And to new beginnings, Oliver added, squeezing my hand. I looked around at my real family, not the perfect image Rebecca had tried to force, but something stronger, something true. Mom wrote that Rebecca's greatest weakness was thinking power meant control, I said, but real power is in letting go, in trusting love to be stronger than hate. Raylan lifted her glass. To Mom's last gift, showing us that the best revenge isn't punishment. It's living well, I finished. As the sun set, I felt Mom's presence in every flower, every breath of evening air. She'd given us the tools to rebuild, not just the company, but our family. And in the end, that was worth more than any revenge could ever be. The house stood strong behind us, no longer a symbol of loss, but a foundation for something new, something Rebecca could never touch, something Mom had known we'd find all along, our way home.